Hi, welcome to the Get Ready with God podcast. My name is Julie Taylor and I am your host, and I am not God. Obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm not even a scriptorian. I'm literally just a girl sitting in front of a microphone, hoping God is real. The Get Ready with God podcast is the daily devotional podcast to help you see divinity in every day. Wow, that was a good one. I did that really well today. I mean, if I ever recorded like a canned intro instead of just saying that every single time, I think that's the one we would pull. I think I really nailed that. How is your guys' memorization coming? Can you recite it yet? Because that's something I'd like to ask each of you to do. Okay. I have been thinking about this idea that we might do on the podcast. I haven't really decided, but why not bring you into the brainstorm? I am really, really a lover of the 12 steps that are used in addiction recovery, and there's like a few variations of them. I have worked through them multiple times in different ways. I am currently working through them again, which is such a gift to be able to do, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And as I was working on it last Sunday, I thought, what if we went through the 12 steps together on the podcast? Because the thing about addiction is, at the core, addiction is a connection and coping problem, right? And there is not a soul on this planet who cannot relate to a connection and a coping problem. And the 12 steps helps you tackle that in a really self-aware, beautiful way. And the 12 steps, or how I initially came back to God the first time. And it was the reintroduction of a higher power and faith through kind of a 12-step angle that kind of opened that door for me. And I think the 12 steps, because they're they're designed and used in addiction settings, and a lot of people don't identify as addicts. They don't ever engage in 12-step work. And I feel like I've seen a lot of coaching plans and programs and structures in my career, and I have never, ever found one that does a better job than the 12 steps. And I think when I was building my own curriculum for some coaching that I did a few years ago, I even had that thought where I was just like, yeah, I can do my own. But I don't think it's better than 12 steps. I still think everyone should just go work the 12 steps. And I think that addiction is a powerful access point to them. But every time I go through them, I think it's something that every single person would benefit from working through. And I just thought it could be fun to work through the 12 steps together. So those 12 episodes might be coming. I might do that. I want to study a little bit more and prepare, but I actually want to talk about something that someone said in a recovery meeting last week. So I was in a meeting last week and someone shared that addicts tend to exaggerate or minimize everything. And that really hit home for me because I think that I definitely fall into that category, where it's interesting because some things I exaggerate and really inflate in my mind, and they can become really like a lot bigger than they actually are in reality. And then other things that are actually quite big, I will diminish and downplay and dismiss. And I had never thought of it of like a characteristic of an addict. I just was like, well, that's just showbiz, baby. Sometimes I'm high, sometimes I'm low. But I did, the first time I worked through the 12 steps, I did have the awareness. And this is a little bit where the frantic energy conversation came from, where it's hard for me to be really high or really low. And so I work hard to kind of stay in equilibrium in the middle. So like for a while, I had to really like mute myself to stay in the middle while I learned emotional regulation and coping skills. And so when you're learning emotional regulation and coping skills, it's really helpful to stay as close to equilibrium as you can, because you don't actually have the skills. When you go high or low from that, you don't really have the skills to cope and manage that. And that's what can drive things like addiction or harmful behaviors. Over the years, as I've worked on this, I do have like a much bigger spectrum now of safe emotional space where I feel like I can allow myself to go a little bit higher and a little bit lower without being in a danger zone, because I've developed those regulation and coping skills more. Anyways, when this man said that, I related to it quite a bit, and I thought about this journey that I've been on of broadening my range of safe emotional fluctuation. But I thought about it in terms of faith, because that's what I do, and that's what this podcast is about. And I think we're always playing a game of exaggerating or diminishing. And how do we instead live in reality? It can be really, really hard to keep ourselves in reality because our mind plays tricks on us. And those tricks are one of my favorite things. It's like my brain's favorite party trick is the fact that I can change what I actually believe, and I can actually change the neural pathways in my brain. Like, that's really incredible because it gives us so much potential to craft our reality and our life experience, which is really, really exciting. But with it comes this flip side where we can rewire those same neural pathways for anxiety, for depression, for insecurity, to put everything through this lens of everybody hates me, I'm not good enough, my faith isn't strong enough. And where I've struggled, I think, is that I get into these places where sometimes I'm able to be faith positive and sometimes I'm not. And when I'm not, it's like I put everything through the filter of criticism and skepticism, and I can exaggerate it to mean really scary things, like I can't choose faith, God is not real, like that existential habitual spiral that I am so familiar with is driven by taking inputs and exaggerating them. And then at the same time, I can diminish goodness and I can diminish miracles and I can diminish faith. I can diminish faith building experiences that I've had. And so obviously this applies differently like in life, because I think in my life, I diminish things like health problems. I was telling a friend this week that medical professionals are the only people that I lie to. Well, I'll lie to you about how long a hike is, and I will lie to medical professionals. It's a problem, okay? We don't need to unpack it right now, but I diminish stuff that I don't want to deal with, basically. Anyway, so this context of faith is a little bit different than that. You can explore both. I think both are fascinating to explore and to really dig into on your own time about your own self and your own psyche. But with faith, it feels like I always exaggerate the dissonance and the problems, and I diminish the faith building experiences that I have. And so it keeps me trapped in this place of doubt because one is louder than the other and one is more powerful than the other because I give it that power and because that's how I'm wiring my brain to perceive them. Anyways, I think we should work the 12 steps together. Let me know what you think about that. I don't know how to let me know. I don't know, DM me. I think you can leave comments on this podcast somewhere, but I've never read a comment. So maybe are people commenting? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for being here. Check in with yourself. Just explore that thought of what am I exaggerating and what am I diminishing? I'm not saying that we need to flip it and that we need to exaggerate the good and diminish the doubts. I think you should look your doubts straight in the eye and face that reality. So I'm not suggesting that the solution is to swap that. My suggestion is that we learn how to play in the actual space of reality and what is, instead of trying to constantly manipulate ourselves into something. I don't know. I just think it's a really fascinating way to think about faith. And I want to do a better job of giving equal weight to the faith and the doubts instead of inflating one and diminishing the other. And I just want to see what that does for me. I don't know. Everything's an experiment. Every day's an experience. Experiment and an experience. That's true. Anyways, YOLO, baby. Love you. Bye.